Firstly, this is our BBC cameraman down here. Working hard to do a great half-hour special, I believe. What's your name, firstly?
Jay.
Jay, and what part of America are you from?
Connecticut. I'm a little hoarse. I've been screaming Beatles songs.
Can you sing, by the way?
Well, I used to, but not anymore.
So you don't fancy belting out a Beatles tune for our BBC crew here?
It's been a hard day's night. I can't do anymore.
And you enjoying today?
Oh, it's been great. Great.
Great atmosphere in Liverpool.
I love it.
Can we have a cheer maybe for the Liverpool crew, maybe? Can we have a bit of a cheer out there just for the BBC here?
It's in the they're on record. Certainly if you knew them like I did, you just shout out at you, and it's like, oh, come on, guys, you know, all the day. It's so sad, so sad.
Okay, we're during the 1960s. This building now derelict was the Indica Arts Gallery, run by three men: Barry Miles, Peter Asher and John Dunbar. Their company name was MAD. It's because the initials of their name. Well, Paul McCartney is a very good friend of both Barry Miles and Peter Asher. Of course, Barry Miles currently writing a book with Paul about the Beatles LPs from Rubber Soul to Abbey Road. That's the nearest thing we'll get to Paul McCartney autobiography. Of course, Peter Asher, we talked about earlier, Peter and Gordon, and of course, brother and Jane. And in fact, it's through Paul McCartney that these people that Paul was the early supporter of the gallery. Yes, Paul McCartney, not John Lennon. It was Paul actually introduced John to the avant-garde scene in general, the Indica Arts Gallery in particular. Paul actually donated lots of money to the gallery so it could open in the first place. He even designed the wrapping paper that things bought in the gallery bookshop were wrapped in. So it was Paul that actually introduced John to the Indica Arts Gallery and the avant-garde scene in general, which you don't read in many Beatles books, but it's the truth. In fact, there's a picture of Paul with John Dunbar, Peter Asher, Barry Miles, and Marianne Faithfull, who was actually married to John Dunbar at the time, at the opening of the Indica Arts Gallery in early 1966.
Just like I need you, hold me, love me, hold me, love me. I ain't got nothing but loving. 8 days a week. Always on my mind. One thing I can say, girl, I love you all the time.
Richard, why don't we just move back?
Everybody. Mercy of this land, the place I love, and here I'll stay, and here I'll stay, here I'll stay. Thank you.
And I hope you were experienced. We're going to come back on this way.
Going to do about a 4-hour coach tour or so around major Beatles sites in London.
Yes, there is such a thing, and this group of mostly Americans will spend the next week and a half day tripping through the magical mysteries of Beatledom.
It's something crazy about all of us that's in us.
What is it?
It's just a passion that never goes away.
Little could they know that more than 30 years later, Beatle history would become a tourist industry, and London like a giant game board of Beatles trivial pursuits.
This is where Jane and Paul lived. It was the Dr. Asher's house.
He's speaking of just even though Paul lived in her parents' spare bedroom.
He's a very naughty boy, actually.
But the house is famous for another reason, because one morning Paul woke up with what would become a timeless tune in his head.
You might say like scrambled eggs, or how I love your legs.
Paul would Jane Asher's scrambled eggs were quite an inspiration, and for that matter, so was this balcony outside EMI Records.
Walter, was it that one or this one? So it's that one.
If it looked... This should refresh your memory. The Beatles used it in 4 different photo shoots.
It's just a balcony.
That's all right. No, it isn't just. No, it's just sort of they made things legendary.
Clearly, PhDs. Show them a building, receive a dissertation.
Like a landmark for people who love the Beatles.
And this, of course, is the world-famous Marylebone train station. The sight of it may give you a case of deja vu.
It's been a hard day's night.
At least in the opening scene from that movie, the Beatles led a crowd right up Boston Street and out onto Platform 1.
You like it better in black and white or color? I kind of do. I kind of like it better in black and white, actually, yeah. Has that classic feeling to it, you know?
The tour's first day, it would have to be this nondescript building in St. John's Wood, where from 1962 to 1970, the Beatles recorded more than 200 songs.
With all your life, now you come here and you see where it was done. Paint this over again.
Yeah, but we only live like not that far away, so we come back up here and write it again.
How many times have you written it?
About 8 times.
And that remains a relatively small number when compared with how many times we watched tour members traverse the crosswalk out front.
This is like a magical place for Beatle fans. It's like Nirvana.
It's just a crosswalk.
That's what I always say, but it's a specific landmark in terms of where an album cover was shot, and it's just nice to see what the rest of the street looks like.
Well, now he knows. Now they all know. It was the perfect end to a perfect day. The perfect beginning to 10 perfect days of Beatle madness.
Can you think of any place you'd rather be than this?
Only in Paul McCartney's arms.
When Mad About the Beatles continues, we follow our fans all the way to Liverpool.
We're going where John was born.
Put it this way, the Muslims claim Mecca, the Jews and Christians Jerusalem, and for Beatles fans, well, they scrimp and save, and then they go to Liverpool.
Well, I do some babysitting, and I put off landscaping the rest of our yard because, you know, you have to have your priorities straight.
Shelley Benyon is a full-time wife and mother in Sacramento, California, but at age 11, she was one of them.
What got into the girls back then?
You know, it's hard to say, but I'm telling you, it was a genuine emotion.
So, for 10 glorious days, Shelley and her newfound friends have lived and breathed and, in at least one case, tried to carry part of this English Beatlescape back home.
You know, our suitcases are heavy enough as it is, but it's like, I'm not going to leave these bricks here. You know, I've got to take them home with me.
You never know. John Lennon might have stepped on that brick.
Well, he just might have, you know. You never know.
Quite frankly, the tourist parts of Liverpool look more like an English Graceland.
It's like someone who's very interested in history to see like the ruins in Rome or, you know, some other significant historical place that's interesting to them.
Simple, and, you know, you weren't worried about taxes and mortgages and children and things like that.
For all of the highs on a trip like this, one must also feel a touch of sadness.
Let me take you down, 'cause I'm going to Strawberry.
When the tour arrived at Strawberry Fields, their thoughts turned to John Lennon as a youth. He grew up near here, he had his earliest memories here, and in coming here, Shelley Benyon felt closer to John than ever before.
This is John. You know, when he died, for a lot of us, it was like losing a family member. It still hurts.
For the man who gave so much to her and whose life ended so abruptly, Shelley left some words on the painted red gate.
Is this closure?
No. There can't be closure for something like this.
Their visit to Strawberry Fields only lasted 15 minutes, but as long as there are Beatle fans, the emotions of this place will endure forever.
It's the first time I've been. Sometimes driven by on that main road and pointed it out, but when we get to the park, we go left to Penny Lane. You don't
Aerobic, 1, 2, 3.
This one was the one with Nan on. It was here a few weeks ago, but a lot of those have got Nan on. I think somebody's moved from over there because it's similar to girls, and they put a rolled parchment on the counter and said, "How much will you give us for that?" And I unrolled it, and there was a painting on a canvas about this tall, about that wide, a beautiful Victorian garden with flower and pathways, and a beautiful lady with a full-length white gown on, like a wedding dress, with a white parasol. And at the bottom of the painting it said, "Lady in a white gown with white parasol," and the full name, Stuart Sutcliffe, 1958. And I couldn't believe what I was looking at.